Chapter 5. The air crackles with tension this morning as I make my way to the day's training session. The corridor feels more like an entry to an arena, a place of testing and trials. Drake and Taryn block my path to the training area. Drake, with his towering stature and buzz cut, exudes a palpable sense of intimidation. Taryn, always in sync with him, stands there mirroring his aggressive stance. Their disdainful expressions are clear as day. "You think you belong here, little scholar," Drake booms, his voice echoing off the hallway walls, dripping with contempt. I stop, their hostile stares cutting through me. Gathering my composure, I reply with a steadiness that surprises even me. "Well, Drake, last I checked, they wanted brains and brawn here, but if it's just a flexing contest, I might be in the wrong place." Taryn lets out a snort, her sneer widening. "Brains won't help you in a fight," he retorts. "True, but it helps in figuring out how not to get into one in the first place." I shoot back, meeting his gaze squarely. "Or haven't you learned that yet?" Their insults about my academic background sting like daggers, each word aimed to puncture my confidence in my physical abilities. I attempt to maneuver around them, my mind set on the training session ahead, but they loom over me, unyielding, their contempt palpable. Suddenly, Drake lashes out with a shove, his force sending me crashing to the floor. The impact is a rude awakening, a physical and emotional shock, starkly underscoring my vulnerability in this domain of hardened warriors. Their mocking laughter echoes through the hallway, a cruel soundtrack to my moment of vulnerability. My heart races, pounding in my ears as I lie on the floor. I feel trapped and defenseless. They loom over me, fists clenched, ready to escalate their intimidation. Then Clara and Lieutenant Vega step in. Clara's voice cuts through the tension, strong and assertive. "Back off, Drake," she commands, positioning herself as a barrier between me and them. Her protective stance is a beacon of solidarity in this hostile environment. Lieutenant Vega's arrival adds a layer of authority to the scene. Her stern gaze sweeps over the bullies, a silent but powerful rebuke. The mere presence of Vega, with her commanding aura, changes the dynamics of the situation. "Enough," Vega states, her voice brooking no argument. Her command is clear and direct, and even Drake and Taryn, with all their size and bravado, cannot ignore the authority she commands. Reluctantly, they step aside, their aggressive posture deflating under her watchful eyes. As I rise, assisted by Clara, the sting of embarrassment colors my cheeks. The physical pain from the fall pales in comparison to the shame of my inability to stand up to Drake and Taryn. I feel exposed, my weaknesses laid bare for all to see. The incident leaves a bitter aftertaste as the training session comes. My mind is a whirlwind of self-doubt and frustration. For me, giving up is not an option. I find a way, or I make one. Amidst this turmoil, the thought from last night resurfaces, the idea of seeking an alliance with Jack. A surge of determination rises within me, fueled by a deep-seated resolve. I'm done being seen as the weakling, weary of the pitying and condescending glances from others, including Clara. The way they look at me as if I'm fragile and incapable grates on my nerves. I'm determined to shed that image to prove to them, and more importantly to myself, that I'm strong. It's a plan born of desperation, a potential solution to my physical inadequacies. Jack, with his exceptional combat skills, could be the key to elevating my abilities. In exchange, I will offer my expertise in the areas where he struggles. Hacking. The day's light is fading, casting long shadows across the training facility grounds. The encounter with Drake and Taryn still echoes in my mind. Despite a rigorous session of combat training with Clara, the sense of vulnerability lingers, gnawing at my resolve. Determined to address my weaknesses, I find myself seeking out the one person who might hold the key to my improvement in combat, Jack Calderon. I catch sight of him leaving the dining area after dinner, his path taking him towards the rear of the building. I follow, my steps guiding me outside in his direction, towards the fringes of the facility where the dense forest looms. The air grows cooler as I venture further, the ambient noises of the facility fading into the gentle sounds of the encroaching forest at twilight. There, leaning casually against the wall, is Jack, his eyes intently focused on the dense forest skirting the edges of the facility. He appears deep in thought, almost as if he's a world away. "Jack," I say, my voice slightly hesitant as I approach him. He turns, his eyes instantly sharp and scrutinizing. I have a proposition for you. One eyebrow arches slightly, a hint of playful mischief in his expression. A proposition? He responds, his tone carrying a teasing, suggestive undertone. So, your room or mine? I roll my eyes at his comment, pushing past the awkwardness. Not that kind of proposition, I clarify, steering the conversation back on track as I lay out my offer. I need help with combat training. You, on the other hand, could use some help with hacking. We could help each other out. He turns slowly, his dangerous gaze still fixed on me. In his eyes, there's a depth that's hard to read. A mix of surprise and guarded curiosity, maybe. Why would I help you? His voice is low, a challenge wrapped in each syllable. I've seen you in combat training. You're one of the best, I admit, swallowing my pride. And I'm struggling. I can offer you help with the hacking exercises in return. It could be a mutual benefit. For a moment, he just watches me, his expression unreadable. Then, with a glance around to ensure we're out of earshot of others, he steps closer. The proximity is unnerving, his presence overwhelming. Mutual benefit, is it? Jack replies, his voice tinged with skepticism but underscored by a hint of curiosity. You really think you're up for the kind of training it'll take to get better? Holding his gaze, I summon as much confidence as I can muster in my response. Yes, I'm up for it, whatever it involves. I need to get stronger. In the seclusion of a dimly lit corner, Jack and I stand alone. The only sounds are the distant calls of birds echoing from the trees. The isolation heightens the intensity of our negotiation, our voices low, blending with the whispers of the night. Jack's gaze is dangerous, probing, as if trying to uncover hidden motives behind my proposal. His mocking eyes hold a hint of amusement. Yet there's a sharpness to them, a calculated assessment of the situation at hand. Jack shifts his weight back against the wall, crossing his arms, creating a distance that allows me to breathe a bit easier. You do realize what you're asking, right? Combat skills aren't exactly something you can master overnight. Fully aware of the challenge, I hold his gaze. I'm aware, I reply firmly, but I'm a quick learner, and I'm determined. So, you want to trade skills? You think you can handle what I'll throw at you? He asks, his voice carrying a note of challenge. Yes, I reply, my resolve firm despite the unease his presence stirs within me. I need to be better, fast, and I know you can help with that. It's not going to be easy, Jack warns, his tone serious. I train hard, and I don't tolerate weakness. If you give up even once or complain, the deal's off. You understand? I nod, swallowing the lump of apprehension in my throat. I understand. I won't give up. Jack's mocking eyes study me for a moment longer, as if weighing my determination. All right, learned one, he begins, his tone taking on a serious edge. But first, I need to see what you're made of. Let's have an assessment training. Tonight, in the sparring room, 11 p.m. Be there. The proposal catches me off guard. Training alone with Jack, especially at such a late hour, is a daunting prospect. The isolation of it, with no one else around, no witnesses to what might happen, it's a bit unnerving. Yet, I recognize this as a crucial opportunity to demonstrate my dedication and determination. I'll be there, I reply, masking any hint of hesitation in my voice. Remember, Jack adds, his voice stern, no surrender, no whining. If you find it's too much, our agreement is null and void. I give a firm nod, a trace of steel edging into my voice as I find myself repeating, I won't back down. I'm fully aware of the stakes involved. As we part ways, the weight of our agreement settles on me. Tonight's training will be a trial by fire, a test of my physical fortitude and engagement. Jack's expertise in combat is undeniable, but so is the challenge he represents. This partnership, born in the quiet shadows of the facility and underscored by the distant calls of night birds, is a gamble. But it's one I'm willing to take, a necessary step in my journey to become stronger, more capable. The clock strikes 11 p.m. as I enter the sparring room, the silence of the night amplifying the pounding of my heart. The room is dimly lit, the shadows stretching across the mats. In this subdued atmosphere, I find Jack already there, arms crossed, his expression a mix of boredom and impatience. As we begin, it quickly becomes apparent that this session is a world apart from any training I've experienced. Jack moves with calculated precision, his strength and skill evident in every action. Each time I try to anticipate his moves, he's already 2 steps ahead, his gaze meeting mine with a mixture of challenge and indifference. I launch into the session with a clumsy attempt at combat. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled courage, I aim a kick at Jack's stomach, hoping to catch him off guard. But Jack is unyielding, his reflexes sharp. He catches my leg effortlessly, the strength in his grip evident. Before I can react, he twists, spinning me off balance and sending me crashing to the mat with a thud that knocks the wind out of me. There's no give in his frame, no hint of leniency. He stands over me, waiting for me to pick myself up and try again. I push myself off the mat, my body aching, but my spirit unbroken. Fear floods my body with each close call. Jack's kicks and strikes, though controlled, come at a relentless pace, each one a lesson in the brutal reality of combat. I find myself repeatedly brought down to the mat, the impact jarring, a physical echo of my shortcomings. Despite the intensity, there's a sense that Jack is holding back, his movements measured, giving me just enough room to try and counter. But my lack of muscle and conditioning is glaringly obvious. I struggle to keep up. In these grueling moments, I catch glimpses of Jack's build, lean muscles moving under his skin with a fluidity that speaks of power and control. It's a stark contrast to my own physique, untrained and unprepared for this level of physicality. The session is relentless, pushing me to my limits. Each time I'm brought down, the cold mat against my skin, I feel a growing sense of frustration. I will not give up. Surrender is not in my nature. I have never yielded in the face of challenge, and I will not start now. Jack's lack of sensitivity, his apparent disdain for my efforts, strikes me sharply. It's clear that he sees me as little more than a means to an end, a necessary partner to aid his own improvement in hacking and programming. As the session finally comes to a close, I'm left gasping for breath, a mix of exhaustion and disappointment weighing heavily on me. The physical pain is tangible, but more acute is the realization of how far I have to go. This partnership with Jack, while offering a glimmer of hope for my improvement, is fraught with challenges. After our first training session, I feel exhausted and a bit lost. We sit at the edge of the training mat, the room now quiet, the intensity of the session lingering like a tangible presence. Jack turns to me, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Eva, this isn't your cup of tea. You're way out of your element here," he says softly. Without thinking, I snap back, "So this is my shot of whiskey." His lips twitch with the hint of a smile. "Why are you here, Eva?" I hesitate, gathering my thoughts. It's not a story I've shared freely, but Jack's sincere interest nudges me to open up. "I need the money," I begin, my voice steadier than I feel. "Supporting my parents has become my responsibility. They're going through a tough time, and I can't just stand by. This job, despite its challenges, offers financial stability and a way to help." Jack looks at me, puzzled. "I don't get it," he finally says. "Your parents are Anita and David Voss, right? The well-known scientists. Why would you need to be here for money?" I'm taken aback by his knowledge. "I'm surprised you know about my parents," I admit, curiosity piqued. Jack smiles, a hint of mystery in his gaze. "I don't know them. Your parents' work is groundbreaking. It's hard not to hear about it in certain circles. So what happened?" I find it difficult to voice the truth, but it feels necessary. My parents were actually put into early retirement. I don't fully understand the reasons behind it, I admit, my voice faltering. Jack's gaze drifts away, his voice taking on a softer tone. "It seems like their work on inventing enzymes to clean contaminated water in sea and lakes wasn't seen favorably by everyone. Their innovations may pose a threat to the plans of certain powerful people." He reflects almost to himself. Fuck, he could be right. I'd never considered that angle before. I don't have the luxury of time to ponder the implications of our conversation further. The moment of understanding between Jack and me lingers briefly before he decisively shifts his attention back to the immediate challenge. My training. There, the skepticism in his voice is clear as he breaks the silence. "You're not ready for this," he states flatly. "Your conditioning is non-existent. We need to start from the basics." Even though Jack's being harsh, he's right. Each labored breath I take is a testament to my physical limitations. The quick onset of fatigue, a glaring sign of my unpreparedness for the demands of combat. "You're out of breath too quickly, and it makes you slow," Jack continues, his tone matter-of-fact, void of empathy. "That's fatal in a real fight. We need to build your endurance first, then strength, and only then the combat techniques." Running. That's where we start, Jack declares, standing up. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., we meet at the edge of the woods, the same place we talked before. The idea of more training, especially that early, is scary. Yet I know it's necessary. Despite all the challenges, teaming up with Jack is my best shot at getting better. As I leave the sparring room, the night feels colder, the shadows deeper. This first joint training session with Jack has been a trial by fire, a clear indication of the struggles and learning that lie ahead in this uneasy alliance. Lying in my bed after the grueling assessment, my body hurts all over. The room is silent, except for my breathing. Yet, my mind is anything but still, replaying the events of the night. As I toss and turn, unable to find a comfortable position for my aching muscles, my thoughts inevitably drift back to Jack and the surprising depth of his knowledge about my parents' work. How is it that Jack seems to know more about their contributions than I do? Their work was supposed to be confidential, accessible only to a select few within the scientific community and certain government agencies. Yet, Jack's comments suggested a familiarity with their projects that went beyond mere casual knowledge. What circles is Jack moving in that he's privy to such information? Seeing Jack act tough but talk in detail about my parents' work confuses me. It's as if his demanding presence on the training floor is but one facet of a much larger picture, one that I'm only beginning to piece together. With his unyielding exterior and demanding training methods, he pushed me to my limits. His tough, almost impenetrable demeanor is intimidating. Yet, amidst the physical exertion and the relentless pace of the training, there was a moment, fleeting and understated, that lingers in my memory. It came after I had managed to execute a defensive move correctly, albeit clumsily. Jack had paused, and for a brief second, his stern expression had softened. There was no verbal praise or overt encouragement, but in that subtle shift of his features, I had caught a glimpse of something akin to respect. It was a mere nod, perhaps, or a slight easing of his usually rigid posture, but it had spoken volumes. For someone of Jack's reserved nature, it was as clear an acknowledgement as any. It was a recognition of my determination, a silent affirmation that my efforts, however meager, were not entirely in vain. The memory of the training, of Jack's firm body blocking and overpowering mine, sends a wave of mixed emotions through me. When he easily pinned me down, it was scary but kind of thrilling too. My thoughts begin to stray into territory I'm hesitant to explore, a confusing mix of admiration, frustration, and something else, something I'm not ready to acknowledge. As I lay there, trying to relax my body, my thoughts betray me, wandering back to him, to his defined, lean muscles, the undeniable display of physical strength and capability. But as these thoughts start to drift into less professional territory, I catch myself with a mental jolt. What the hell is wrong with me? I scold myself harshly. The idea of finding anything remotely attractive in Jack's brute strength seems ludicrous. He's not my type. Not in any way. I continue in my internal reprimand. He's too harsh, too unyielding, everything I usually steer clear of. Yet, there's a nagging voice in the back of my mind, whispering that my reaction, this surprising flutter in my belly, could be traced back to a simpler, more primal desire. It's just been too long, I rationalize. Too few sex in the last months, too much buried in work and studies. That's all this is. But even as I try to convince myself, there's a part of me that knows it's not the entire truth. The feelings that surfaced during our training, the unbidden admiration for his physical prowess, they hint at something more complex than mere physical attraction or a mere reaction to a dry spell. Still, I push these thoughts away, burying them under layers of self-reproach and rationalization. Jack is my training partner, a means to an end in my journey to become stronger and more capable. Anything beyond that is a distraction, a detour I can't afford. I sigh deeply in frustration, trying to focus on the task at hand. The training ahead, the skills I need to develop, the goals I've set for myself. Focus, Eva, I whisper into the darkness. Don't lose sight of why you're here. Eventually, sleep comes, but it's fitful, troubled by the undercurrents of a conflict I'm not yet ready to face. The journey ahead is clear in its objectives, but the path, it seems, is fraught with unexpected challenges, both physical and emotional.